I stared at the email on my screen, reading it for the fifth time, even though each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Subject: Training Transition. Effective immediately from Marcus Peterson, CEO to Sarah Mitchell, Head of Operations. Sarah, starting Monday, you'll begin transitioning your responsibilities to Kevin Peterson. Over the next month, ensure he's fully trained on all operational aspects. Your last day will be October 15th. This decision is final. Best, Marcus, 15 years. I've given this company 15 years of my life. Worked my way up from junior analyst to head of operations. Built the systems that had transformed Davidson and Mills from a struggling regional player into an industry leader. And now I was being replaced by the CEO's 26-year-old nephew, whose biggest achievement was managing not to flunk out of business school. My hands shook as I closed my laptop. Through the glass walls of my office, I could see Kevin lounging at his desk, feet propped up, watching something on his phone. He'd been here 3 months as a management trainee, contributing nothing except endless complaints about the coffee quality and our outdated dress code. "Come in," I called out at the knock on my door, quickly wiping my eyes. Marcus Peterson himself stood in the doorway, his expensive suit and carefully styled gray hair a stark contrast to the smirk on his face. "Sarah, got my email, I assume." He settled into one of my visitor chairs without waiting for an invitation. "Look, I know this might seem sudden, but Kevin needs this opportunity. He's family, and family comes first." "Marcus," I kept my voice steady, professional. "The Miller merger is in final stages. The new inventory system rollout starts next week. The key for projections." He waved his hand dismissively. "Kevin will handle all that. Just make sure you train him properly. He spends half his day on TikTok." The words burst out before I could stop them. "He doesn't understand basic operations, let alone complex merger integrations. This could sink the company." Marcus's face hardened. "Careful, Sarah. Don't make this personal. Kevin has fresh ideas, new perspectives. Frankly, we need some young blood around here. Someone who understands modern business." "Modern business?" I laughed bitterly. "Like what?" "His suggestion to invest our emergency fund in Dogecoin." "That's enough." Marcus stood, his fake friendly demeanor vanishing. "Train Kevin, clear out your office, get your severance, or leave now with nothing. Your choice." As he stormed out, I saw Kevin watching through the glass, not even trying to hide his smirk. My severance package sat unopened on my desk. 2 months' pay for 15 years of service. The injustice of it burned in my throat. What Marcus didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd been preparing for something like this for years. Not this exactly, but I'd seen too many talented people pushed out, replaced by Marcus's endless parade of incompetent relatives and golf buddies. I'd watched him slowly destroy everything we built, all while padding his own pockets and his family's positions. So I'd started buying stock. Small amounts at first, whenever I could afford it. Then larger chunks when my investments in other areas paid off. Always through different brokers, different entities. For 3 years, I'd been the mysterious investor steadily acquiring shares, keeping just under the disclosure threshold. Last week, when rumors of Kevin's promotion started circulating, I'd made my final move. One last major purchase, carefully timed and structured. The paperwork was probably sitting on the board secretary's desk right now, waiting to be processed. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small leather portfolio. Inside was a single document, proof of my controlling interest in Davidson and Mills, now at 51%. Obtained through careful planning, smart investing, and a lot of patience. Marcus thought he was forcing me to train my replacement. In reality, I was about to become his boss. The quarterly board meeting was in 2 days. Marcus had no idea that while he was busy pushing me out, I'd been quietly taking control of his company. He thought Kevin needed an opportunity. Well, I was about to give everyone a masterclass in real modern business. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd saved months ago. "Mr. Harrison, Sarah Mitchell. About that board seat we discussed. I'm ready to accept." The next morning, I arrived early. The office was quiet, most people wouldn't be in for another hour. I needed this time to prepare, to steady my nerves. The document confirming my controlling interest felt heavy in my bag. I walked past my office, soon to be Kevin's office, according to Marcus's grand plans, and headed to the conference room. Started setting up my presentation, the one I've been perfecting for months. The one that would detail every questionable decision, every nepotistic hire, every financial misstep Marcus had made over the past 5 years. Bit early for a terminated employee, isn't it? I turned to find Marcus in the doorway, coffee in hand, looking smug. Board meetings not for hours, and it's closed session anyway. No need for any last-minute presentations. Actually, I smiled, feeling surprisingly calm. I have every right to be here. In fact, I need to prepare. It's my first meeting as majority shareholder. The coffee cup slipped from his hand, splattering across the carpet. What did you say? I slid the document across the table. 51% Marcus. Through completely legal, properly documented stock purchases over the past 3 years. You were so busy watching your nephew's TikToks, you never noticed who was buying up your company. His face went from red to white as he scanned the paperwork. This is impossible. You can't afford. You're just an employee. I finished for him. You never did bother to acknowledge my contributions properly. My bonuses, my stock options, I invested every penny. While you were busy installing your family members in cushy positions, I was quietly becoming your boss. The sound of voices in the hallway made him jump. Other early arrivals starting their day, unaware of the drama unfolding in the conference room. You can't do this, he whispered, but his voice had lost all its previous authority. The board will be very interested in my presentation today, especially the part about the money you've been funneling to your brother's fake consulting company. Or should we discuss Kevin's proposed Dogecoin investment first? He gripped the back of a chair, knuckles white. What do you want? Want? I logged into my laptop, pulled up my presentation. I want to run this company properly, Marcus. No more nepotism. No more questionable financial decisions. No more pushing out talented people to make room for your relatives. I'll resign, he offered quickly. Just name your price. I almost laughed at how quickly he turned to bribery. Oh, I don't want your resignation yet. First, you're going to sit through this board meeting. You're going to watch as I detail every mistake you've made. Then you're going to experience what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here he was, begging to keep his job, just like I had yesterday. But unlike him, I wasn't going to enjoy his humiliation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about fixing what he'd broken. The board members will be here soon, I said, checking my watch. Why don't you get yourself together? It's going to be a long meeting. As he stumbled out, I saw Kevin arriving, sauntering toward what he thought would be his new office. He had no idea that his cushy promotion was about to evaporate along with all of Marcus's authority to grant it. I'd worked 15 years to build this company into something special. Now I had the power to protect it, and everyone else Marcus had tried to push aside. The board meeting was about to change everything, and I was ready. The boardroom filled slowly. I recognized most of the faces, elderly men in expensive suits who'd rubber-stamped Marcus's decisions for years. They barely glanced at me as they took their seats, probably assuming I was there to take notes or serve coffee. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his usual confidence replaced by a sickly pallor. His brother James, Kevin's father, and another board member kept shooting him concerned looks. I noticed Marcus hadn't warned him about what was coming. Before we begin, Marcus's voice cracked slightly. There's been a development. Ms. Mitchell has some information to share. All eyes turned to me, most expressions ranging from confused to annoyed. James Peterson actually checked his watch. Thank you, Marcus. I stood, placing my documents on the table. As of yesterday, I am the majority shareholder of Davidson and Mills, holding 51% of voting shares. The reaction was immediate. James Peterson jumped to his feet, face red. That's impossible. Where would you get that kind of money? I smiled, sliding copies of my documentation to each board member. 15 years of bonuses, stock options, and smart investments. Every purchase properly documented and legally executed. You can verify with your own attorneys, but I assure you it's ironclad. This is absurd, James sputtered. Marcus, do something. But Marcus just stared at the table, knowing what was coming next. Now let's discuss some concerning patterns I've observed. I continued pulling up my presentation, starting with the $2.3 million in consulting fees paid to Peterson Analytics last year. James went pale. his consulting company, the one that had never produced a single report or deliverable. Or perhaps we should examine the 7 executive positions currently held by Peterson family members, none of whom met the minimum qualifications for their roles. I clicked through slides showing their resumes or lack thereof, including the recent attempt to install Kevin Peterson as head of operations, despite his complete lack of relevant experience. The other board members were flipping through my documentation now, their expressions darkening as they realized the extent of the nepotism and mismanagement. This ends today, I stated firmly. I'm implementing immediate changes to protect this company's future. What followed was the most intense 3 hours of my life. I detailed every questionable decision, every wasteful expenditure, every instance of nepotism that had weakened our company. The board members, many of whom had dozed through previous meetings, were now fully engaged. By the time I finished, the mood in the room had shifted dramatically. These men might have been Marcus's golf buddies, but they were also businessmen who'd invested heavily in Davidson and Mills. They couldn't ignore the evidence of mismanagement I presented. I moved for an immediate vote of no confidence in Marcus Peterson as CEO. Richard Harrison, our oldest board member, announced. Others quickly seconded. Marcus finally found his voice. You can't do this. This company has been in my family for 3 generations, I cut in, and you've nearly destroyed it with your nepotism and mismanagement. The vote, gentlemen? It was unanimous. Even James, seeing which way the wind was blowing, voted to remove his own brother as CEO. Ms. Mitchell, Harrison turned to me. Given your controlling interest and evident understanding of this company's operations, I move to appoint you as interim CEO. All in favor? Another unanimous vote. Marcus slumped in his chair, defeated. My first act as CEO, I announced, is to terminate the employment of all unqualified executives, effective immediately. Mr. James Peterson, your consulting contract is also terminated. Security will escort you to clear out your offices. As if on cue, security appeared at the door. I'd arranged this days ago, knowing how the meeting would end. You can't just throw us out, James protested. We built this company. No, I corrected him. The employees you exploited built this company, the ones you pushed aside to make room for your family members. That ends now. As security led them out, I could hear Kevin in the hallway, his voice rising in protest as he realized his cushy future had evaporated. The remaining board members stayed to discuss transition plans. I already had a list of qualified internal candidates to promote into the vacant executive positions. Talented people who'd been overlooked in favor of Marcus's relatives. That evening, I sat in my office, my real office now, the CEO's corner suite, reviewing personnel files. A knock at the door interrupted my work. Come in, I called, surprised to see Marcus standing there. Security must have let him up for one last visit. I underestimated you, he said quietly. All these years I thought you were just another employee, someone I could push around, replace when convenient. That was your mistake, I replied. You saw people as tools to use and discard. I saw them as the heart of this company. He nodded slowly. The board approved your reorganization plan. James is furious, threatening to sue. But we both know he won't. Too much would come out in discovery. Was there something you wanted, Marcus? Besides stating the obvious, he pulled an envelope from his jacket. My formal resignation. I assume you were going to demand it anyway. I took the envelope, not bothering to open it. You know what the real difference between us is, Marcus? You saw this company as your family's property, something to exploit. I saw it as a responsibility to our employees, our customers, our community. And now it's all yours, he said bitterly. No, I corrected him. Now it belongs to everyone who works here, everyone who earns their position through merit, not nepotism. That's the company I'm going to build. After he left, I walked through the quiet office. Most employees had gone home, but a few lights still burned at distant desks, dedicated people staying late to finish projects, unaware that their workplace was about to transform. Tomorrow would bring big changes. My first company-wide memo was already drafted, announcing the restructuring and new opportunities for internal advancement. The qualified employees Marcus had overlooked would finally get their chance to shine. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Saw the company announcement, CEO. Why didn't you tell me? I smiled, remembering all the times I'd wanted to share my plan but couldn't risk it leaking. Mom had taught me the value of patience, of working quietly toward your goals while others underestimated you. Never let them see you coming, she always said. Well, they hadn't seen me coming, and now Davidson and Mills would become the company it should have been all along. I glanced at the brass nameplate on my desk. Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. It had a nice ring to it. Somewhere across town, Marcus was probably drowning his sorrows, wondering how his just an employee had outmaneuvered him so completely. Kevin was likely updating his LinkedIn profile, discovering that his primary qualification, being Marcus's nephew, suddenly carried a lot less weight. But I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about tomorrow, about the changes I would implement, the careers I would help build, the company culture I would transform. Marcus had tried to force me to train my replacement. Instead, I'd replaced him. Sometimes karma works out perfectly. The next morning, I arrived early again. Old habits die hard. But this time, instead of preparing for battle, I was preparing to rebuild. The company-wide email went out at 8 a.m. sharp. Dear colleagues, today marks a new chapter for Davidson and Mills. Merit, not connections, will determine advancement. Hard work, not nepotism, will shape our future. I know many of you have felt overlooked, undervalued, held back by an old system that prized relationships over results. That ends now. In the coming weeks, all executive positions will be open to internal applications. Every employee will have a fair chance to advance based on their qualifications and contributions. This is your company too. Let's build something extraordinary together. Best regards, Sarah Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer. The responses started flooding in immediately. Messages of congratulation, of hope, of relief that things were finally changing. But my favorite came from Janet in accounting, who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times in favor of Marcus's golf buddies. Thank you for showing us that sometimes justice wins. When can I apply for CFO? I smiled and typed back, applications open Monday. May the best candidate win. Marcus had taught me an unintended lesson. If you want something done right, sometimes you have to take over the whole company to do it. Lesson learned, Marcus. Lesson learned. I'm sorry, honey, but the rental house is just too small for all of us tonight, Marcus said, not quite meeting my eyes as he stood in the driveway of the beautiful beachfront property we booked months ago. You and the kids will have to find somewhere else to stay. I stared at him in disbelief. Our 2 exhausted children slumped against me after the long drive to the Florida coast. The words made no sense. We'd specifically chosen this 4-bedroom house to have plenty of space for our family vacation. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I never imagined I'd be standing outside our $3,000 per week rental home at 9 p.m., watching my husband of 12 years essentially lock us out. Our kids, Emma, 10, and Lucas, 8, were too tired to even protest, having endured the 8-hour drive from Atlanta with nothing but dreams of beach days ahead to sustain them. Marcus, this makes no sense, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We looked at the floor plans together. There's more than enough room. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing back at the house. Things changed. My work colleagues showed up unexpectedly. They need the space for an emergency project meeting. Work colleagues, you're a high school gym teacher. What emergency meeting requires a beach house? But he was already turning away, grabbing our suitcases from the trunk and placing them on the driveway. Here's some cash for a hotel, he said, pulling out his wallet. I'll call you tomorrow once things settle down. I looked at the measly $100 he held out. In peak season, that wouldn't even cover one night at the cheapest motel in town. If we could even find vacancy. Marcus, we can't. Mom? Emma's tired voice interrupted. I need to use the bathroom. Marcus stepped back toward the house. There's a gas station about a mile down the road. I'm sorry, but you need to leave. Now. The door closed with a decisive click, leaving us standing in the humid night air. I helped the kids into our SUV, mind racing as I tried to make sense of what was happening. Through the windows of the house, I could see shadows moving, hear faint laughter that definitely didn't sound like a work meeting. Mom, I thought we were going to build sandcastles tomorrow, Lucas said, his voice small and confused. We will, sweetheart. I promise, though I had no idea how I would keep that promise. Let's just find somewhere to rest first. The nearest hotel wanted $400 for their last available room. The next one was fully booked. The third didn't answer their phone. After an hour of desperate calls, I pulled into a beachfront parking lot, trying to figure out our next move. That's when I saw her, a woman walking along the moonlit beach, holding the hand of a little girl who looked around Emma's age. Something about her seemed familiar, though I couldn't place why. They headed toward our rental house, the same one my husband had just barred us from entering. I watched, stomach churning, as they walked right up to the front door. It opened immediately, spilling warm light onto the path. And there stood Marcus, greeting them with the kind of embrace that told me everything I needed to know about his work meeting. "Mom," Emma's voice came from the back seat, more alert now. "Isn't that Dad's friend Melissa? The one from his phone?" My blood ran cold. Melissa. The name I'd seen pop up on his phone too many times over the past year, always dismissed with excuses about parent-teacher conferences or school events. Now here she was, walking into our vacation rental with her daughter while we sat in a parking lot with nowhere to go. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, tears threatening to fall. But I couldn't cry, not now, not in front of the kids. They needed me to be strong, to figure this out. I reached for my phone, scrolling through contacts until I found the one person who might be able to help. "Olivia?" My sister Kate's voice was groggy with sleep. "What's wrong?" "I need your help," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I need you to help me access Marcus's email. Remember when you helped set up his accounts last Christmas? Please tell me you still have those passwords." There was a pause, then the sound of typing. "Give me 5 minutes," Kate said, fully awake now. "And Olivia? Whatever he did, we're going to make it right." I ended the call and looked back at our rental house. Through the window, I could see Marcus, Melissa, and her daughter settling in for a cozy evening in the home I'd spent months saving for, planning every detail of what should have been our perfect family vacation. What Marcus didn't know was that I'd been quietly preparing for something like this. Not this exact scenario. I never imagined he'd be cruel enough to make his own children sleep in a car. But after finding suspicious text messages and unexplained charges on our credit card statements, I'd started documenting everything. My laptop contained a folder labeled Family Photos that actually held screenshots of every questionable transaction, every late-night text, every unexplained absence. I even hired a private investigator last month, though I called them off when Marcus seemed to recommit to our family. Planning this vacation with enthusiasm I hadn't seen in years. Now I understood why he'd been so eager to handle all the rental arrangements himself. My phone buzzed. Kate had come through with the passwords. With trembling fingers, I logged into Marcus's email account. And there it was, months of correspondence with Melissa, planning their parallel vacation. The rental agreement showing he actually booked 6 bedrooms, not 4. Airline itineraries for Melissa and her daughter, paid for with our joint account. "Mom." Lucas's sleepy voice came from the back. "Can we go inside soon?" I looked at my children, then at the house where their father was playing happy family with his secret girlfriend. Something inside me hardened into resolve. "Yes, baby," I said, starting the car. "We're going somewhere even better." I pulled out of the parking lot and drove to the nearest Bank of America branch. It was closed, of course, but the ATM would serve my purpose. I had 20 minutes until midnight, 20 minutes to act before Marcus could realize what I was about to do. Our joint account held just over $45,000, the combined savings we'd been building for the kids' college funds. Marcus had always insisted on keeping the money there instead of moving it to a dedicated education account, claiming we needed the flexibility. Now I understood why. I began withdrawing cash in $800 increments, the maximum allowed. With each transaction, I imagined Marcus's face when he discovered what I'd done. He thought he could discard us, leave his children sleeping in a car while he played house with his girlfriend. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson about consequences. My phone buzzed again, Kate sending more screenshots from Marcus's email. Dinner reservations, spa appointments, even a ring purchase from 2 weeks ago. All paid for with our family savings, all meticulously planned behind my back. I made the final withdrawal just as the clock struck midnight. The account was now empty except for $100, the same amount he tried to give us for a hotel. Poetic justice, I thought, tucking the cash into my purse. I drove to the nicest beachfront hotel in town, the one with the water park the kids had begged to visit when we first planned this trip. Marcus had claimed it was too expensive, insisting we stick to our rental house budget. "Good evening," I told the front desk clerk, pulling out my credit card, my personal one, not the joint account Marcus could access. "I'd like your best oceanfront suite for the week. And do you still offer those dolphin watching tours my children were asking about earlier?" The clerk's eyes lit up. "Yes, ma'am. Would you like me to add that to your reservation? It includes breakfast and a private cabana." "Perfect," I said, smiling for what felt like the first time in hours. "And one more thing, if anyone asks for us, especially a man named Marcus Bennett, we're not here." I carried Lucas to bed while Emma sleepily followed, both kids too exhausted to even notice their luxurious surroundings. As I tucked them in, my phone began buzzing with texts from Marcus. "Where are you? The ATM says insufficient funds. What did you do? Answer your phone right now." I silenced the notifications and walked out onto our private balcony, breathing in the salt air. Below, I could see our rental house, its lights still on as Marcus presumably discovered the consequences of his choices. My phone buzzed one final time, an email from Kate. She found something else in Marcus's accounts, something that would ensure he could never hurt us like this again. But that would wait until morning. For now, I watched the moonlight dance on the waves, listening to my children's peaceful breathing from the next room. Tomorrow would bring chaos, confrontation, and change. But tonight we were safe, comfortable, and far from the man who thought he could discard us so easily. I smiled, thinking of the dolphin tour tickets tucked safely in my purse. Marcus had chosen his new family over us? Fine. We would have the vacation of a lifetime without him. The kids and I deserved nothing less. Morning came with a symphony of seagulls and crashing waves. I barely slept, spending most of the night reviewing the documents Kate had uncovered. Each new revelation felt like another twist of the knife Marcus had plunged into our marriage. The email Kate found wasn't just evidence of an affair, it was proof of calculated financial deception spanning years. Marcus had been systematically diverting money from our joint accounts into a private one, using it to fund a lifestyle with Melissa that our children had been denied. Private school tuition for her daughter, weekend getaways disguised as teaching conferences, even a down payment on a condo in Tampa, waiting for the right time to leave us. I was still processing this information when Emma wandered onto the balcony, her eyes wide as she took in the ocean view. "Mom, this place is amazing. But why aren't we at the other house with Dad?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Marcus again, his 20th call since midnight. This time I answered. "Where is my money?" he roared, not bothering with pleasantries. "Our money," I corrected calmly, "is being put to better use than funding your girlfriend's lifestyle. How's Melissa enjoying my rental house?" The line went silent for a moment. Then his voice dripping with venom. "You've lost your mind. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I replied, opening my laptop. "I'm sure they'd be very interested in these bank statements showing how you've been embezzling from our children's college fund. Or maybe they'd like to see the deed to that Tampa condo you bought with Melissa 2 months ago. How did you? Did you really think Kate wouldn't keep those passwords when she set up your accounts? The same Kate who works in digital forensics." Lucas appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Mom, can we get breakfast?" "Of course, sweetie," I said, then back to Marcus. "I have to go. Our kids are hungry. You remember them, right? The ones you made sleep in a car last night." "Olivia, wait." I ended the call and took the kids down to the hotel's breakfast buffet. They were delighted by the chocolate chip pancakes and ocean view, their excitement almost making me forget the nightmare of last night. Almost. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. He just found his life insurance policy. Guess who he changed the beneficiary to last month?" I excused myself from the table, stepping away to call her. "Tell me everything." What Kate had discovered was the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. Marcus hadn't just been planning a new life with Melissa. He'd been systematically erasing us from his old one. The life insurance policy was just the beginning. "He's been moving money around for months," Kate explained. "Setting up accounts in her name, changing beneficiaries, even putting her daughter as a dependent on his teaching insurance. But here's where he messed up. He used our family email domain for everything. The same domain I helped set up and still technically administer." I watched Emma and Lucas chatting happily over their pancakes, unaware that their father had been planning to abandon them so thoroughly. "Send me everything," I said. "And Kate?" "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," she replied. There's more. Remember that private investigator you hired and called off? I found his report in your cloud storage. You might want to see what he discovered about Melissa's background. After breakfast, I settled the kids in the hotel's children's program, a full day of supervised beach activities and crafts. Then I retreated to our suite to read the PI's report. Melissa, it turned out, had quite a history. 3 previous marriages, each ending when she drained her husband's accounts and disappeared. Her daughter? A prop, borrowed from her sister to make her stories more convincing. The real kicker? Her name wasn't even Melissa. My hands were shaking as I compiled everything into a single document. The fraud, the theft, the false identity. Just as I finished, a commotion erupted in the hotel hallway. You can't stop me from seeing my kids, Marcus's voice boomed. I'm their father. I opened the door to find him facing off with hotel security, his face red with rage. Behind him stood Melissa, trying to look concerned while shooting nervous glances at the exit. Actually, I said, holding up my phone, you forfeited that right when you made them sleep in a car so you could play house with a con artist. Speaking of which, hello, Patricia. Or do you prefer Melissa? I'm sure your parole officer would love to know you've crossed state lines. The color drained from Melissa's face. Without a word, she turned and fled, leaving Marcus staring after her in confusion. What are you talking about? He demanded. I handed him the PI's report. Seems your girlfriend forgot to mention her outstanding warrants in Georgia and Florida. But don't worry, I'm sure the FBI will help you sort it all out. They're very interested in her pattern of identity theft and bank fraud. Marcus slumped against the wall, the reality of his situation finally hitting him. Olivia, I can explain. Save it for your lawyer. I cut him off. You'll be hearing from mine soon. Oh, and Marcus, the kids are having the time of their lives without you. Emma's going on a dolphin watching tour this afternoon, something you said we couldn't afford while you were buying condos for your girlfriend. I turned to the security guards. Please escort him out and add him to the do not admit list. Later that afternoon, I sat on the beach watching Emma and Lucas build sandcastles with their new friends from the kids' club. My phone kept buzzing with updates. Melissa/Patricia had been arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico. Marcus's school had placed him on administrative leave pending an investigation into misused funds. Kate had found even more evidence of his financial manipulation. But none of that mattered as much as the sound of my children's laughter carrying across the sand. They were resilient, adapting to our new reality with a strength that amazed me. Yes, there would be hard conversations ahead. Yes, our lives would change dramatically. But watching them play, I knew we would be okay. My phone buzzed one final time, an email from my lawyer. She had already filed for emergency custody and frozen all our remaining assets. But more importantly, she had uncovered something interesting about the beach house rental. The property is owned by Patricia's last victim, she wrote. He's willing to testify about how she scammed him, and he's offering to let you and the kids stay there for the remainder of your vacation, free of charge. Poetic justice. I smiled, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Tomorrow we would move into the beach house that Marcus had tried to deny us. Tomorrow we would continue building our new life without him. But tonight we would enjoy our oceanfront suite, order room service, and plan our dolphin watching adventure. Tonight we would celebrate our freedom from a man who thought he could discard us so easily. Marcus had chosen his path, thinking he held all the power. He never expected his quiet, accommodating wife to fight back. He never imagined I would not only survive his betrayal but thrive in spite of it. That evening, as I tucked the kids into their plush hotel beds, Emma asked a question that made my heart ache. Mom, is Dad ever coming back? I stroked her hair, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, sweetie, the best thing a person can do is leave our lives. Your father made choices that hurt us, but we're going to be okay. Better than okay. Because we have each other. Lucas chimed in. Exactly, I smiled. And because we're stronger than he ever knew. After they fell asleep, I stood on the balcony again, watching the moonlight dance on the waves. The beach house that was meant to be the site of our family's destruction would instead become the launching point for our new beginning. Marcus had wanted to throw us away, but he'd only succeeded in setting us free. And as I listened to the rhythm of the ocean and my children's peaceful breathing, I knew with absolute certainty that we had already won. The vacation he tried to steal from us, It was just the beginning of our greatest adventure, a life without his lies, manipulation, and betrayal. A life where my children would learn that they deserve better than what their father had tried to give them. A life that was finally and completely our own.